Today we're taking a look at the Nokia Lumia 735, the brand new budget phone from Nokia and Microsoft. Let's take a look. Hey everybody, Daniel Rubino here, Windows Phone Central, and we're taking a look today at the Lumia 735. Just hitting the markets now worldwide. We have the LTE version, of course, because that is what a 735 is. It's the variant of the 730, which itself is a dual SIM 3G phone. This is a single SIM with LTE, and it's going around the world, and I've heard Verizon in the US is getting this sometime in October or November. In fact, it's in testing right now. They haven't officially announced it, but that's what I'm hearing. Anyway, here in the back, you can see you got the different colors that are out there. So you got green, orange, black, and white. And they just boast some cool stuff here, including mixed radio, Hear Maps, Hear Drive, Qualcomm Snapdragon, and Qi wireless charging. And then, of course, those Zeiss optics. I like the new box here of Nokia. I think they looks a little bit cooler for 2014. And let's take a look at the device itself. As you can see, I got the orange version, which is pretty great. And, you know, this is a fantastic design. I'm a huge fan of the Lumia 720. It was one of my favorite phones, even though I have options to use much higher spec devices. I kept coming back to the 720 because it's just such a beautiful device and feels great in your hand. And you can see they continue the design aesthetics of that 720, although it's a little bit longer, but it's still got that curviness to it. If I had to say what this closely resembled, it was probably the Lumia 900, a little bit of 920 even, with that single unibody design. But what makes this cool, and you may have seen it, is the sticker here on the back, which I'm just going to peel off, is that this back piece is removable. So I can just do this and peel off the back cover. And there you can see the Qi wireless charging built in, which is awesome because the 720 did not have Qi. It had a cover that went over it. And although it worked, it actually made the phone significantly more bulky. Now you have it built in. You can also replace these covers, right? So you get orange, you want to try green, go buy a green one, and problem solved. So that's a great change here that we're really happy about. Looking at the rest of the device, it's very light, by the way. Even, of course, there's no battery in this, but with the battery itself, it comes in at 134 grams, which, as far as Lumias go, that's one of the lightest ones out there, if not the lightest. Over here, you have your nano SIM. So in case you're curious, there you go, nano SIM. And you have a micro SD card for expansion up to 128 gigs, always welcomed. And that's good considering this has only 8 gigs of internal memory, which isn't tremendous, but, you know, throw in that micro SD and you should be set. Let's open this up here. And we have the battery, which is a 2,220 milliamp battery. Pretty decent size, considering what this phone is running for horsepower, which we'll go over in a few minutes. It should be more than enough to offer all day usage. And we just pop that in there and pop this cover back on, and just a phenomenal design. It's just so bizarre that that can come off like that, because it really feels like the Lumia 900 to me in terms of being a single unibody design, but you get that removable cover. Let's see, I'll turn that on now. Let that boot up and then we'll come back to it. Get your little wireless charging in here. Oh, that's kind of nice. They show you all the different options out there, including that new the wireless charging plate that glows, which is pretty awesome, and some of the older stuff, which is good. You have your quick start guide, and I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, you got, of course, your plugs, and you can see you have an international version. So for those in the US, you're probably wondering what that is, but there you go. Just a single plug, not even a micro USB cable. It's just a single unit. So you find this on the more budget devices for Nokia, but whatever, it works. We get the phone booting, and while that is, I'll just go over the hardware for you. On the back here, 6.7 megapixel camera. It is not pure view, it is Zeiss optics. Now that is almost the same camera as what was on the 720. I'm going to take a wild guess here and though say it's been updated a little bit in terms of hardware. I actually love the 720's camera. It's one of the best ones out there. In fact, they reused it in the Lumia 2520 tablet because it was so good. So yeah, it's only 6.7 megapixels, but it takes very sharp photos. So I'm curious to see how well it works here. And of course you get that flash just like you had there as well. Going to the front here, let me pick US. and it's rebooting. You do get a front-facing camera. I believe it's a VGA camera. I gotta check that specs again, but yeah, it's not gonna be, oh, sorry. That was the dumbest thing I've ever said, of course. This has a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. That's the whole selling point in this phone, right? It is called the selfie phone because of 5 megapixels. So it's a crazy camera, especially compared to only 6.7 megapixels. But if you're into taking selfies, you're going to want to use that thing. You can see it's not a huge camera, right? It's just the sensor itself is a higher quality sensor on there. Turn this off again. Going around here, you do have your volume controls and power button. Once again, sad to say, no camera button. So once again, you only see camera buttons on Nokia devices, or we should say Lumia devices going forward, on PureView devices. So the 830 has it, 930 of course has it, 1520 has it. But the 730 series does not, because it's not PureView. That's just what they're doing. It helps save them money. Going around to the top there, 3.5mm headset jack, pretty normal. On the bottom, your micro USB port. Speaker on the back here. I would have probably preferred the speakers on the bottom. I think they work a little bit better, but you can see it's actually angled here so that when it's laying flat, that speaker clears. So hopefully it should still be audible. And you have the Nokia label still there. It's very faint, but it's on the back and along with Zeiss. In terms of display, which I can show you a little bit there, but we'll boot it up later and go over it. That is a 720p, so 1280 by 720, 4.7-inch resolution screen, which is obviously a little bit bigger than the 720's display. Now it is OLED, so depending on how you feel about OLED versus LCD, you're going to get some really deep and contrasty colors, but perhaps not as natural looking as the LCDs. You are running a quad-core 1.2 gigahertz processor, Snapdragon 400. Now, that's the same processor in this Lumia 635. And so it's going to be interesting to see the performance of this and how well it does, since it is pushing a little bit more pixels. But, you know, so far, Windows Phone has handled the 1.2 gigahertz range pretty well, but you're not going to get quite the video performance as you would with the higher end flagship phones. As I mentioned, Qi wireless charging, 134 grams. It is 8.9 millimeters thin, which is it's a pretty thin phone. It's slightly thinner than the 720 itself, as you can see right there. And you know, so this is one of the lightest and thinnest Lumias you're going to be able to pick up. You have Corning Gorilla Glass 3 on that display, clear black, which is why it looks so beautiful there. You can see, I think I have the Lumia 530 here. You can see the difference, how that's clear black and that one is not. You can see the display, of course it's LCD too. But yeah, you have double tap to awake, and I think there should be glance on there as well, but we'll find out when the OS boots up. And you do have NFC on there, as well as 1 gig of RAM. So that was a big limitation of the 720, which only had 512 megabytes, and it was a big limiting factor. You couldn't install some games. It's becoming less of a problem these days, but I'll take 1 gig of RAM any day over not having it. And then yeah, 8 gigs of internal storage and micro SD expansion. And since you can install apps and games on that micro SD card with Windows Phone 8.1, which this of course includes, you pretty much have expandable memory forever on this, unless you can really fill up 128 gigs. I'm going to finish setting this up and we'll come back and give a tour of the OS. Okay everybody, we're back and we finished booting up and setting up the Lumia 735 here, and it just looks fantastic. You can see that 4.7-inch display with clear black OLED and Corning Gorilla Glass 3 just looks fantastic. You can see the colors and viewing angles are really, really good. Feels super smooth, of course, with that Corning Gorilla Glass. And overall, just a great experience. 1.2 gigahertz processor, but feels very fast and fluid. You can see him zooming around the OS here. And it's only when you compare it to other Windows phones on the high end do you notice perhaps things don't launch as quickly. But overall, I think it definitely looks really, really nice. And I can't really complain that much about launching stuff. You can see I'm going to launch news right there, and it goes pretty quick to me, in my opinion. And when I load up a story, a little bit of a delay there, but overall great experience. Of course, you can see those on-screen keys, which I can swipe away if I want to and bring them back again, and I can make the color black or the color of my accent, so that's pretty nice. But overall really good. The camera, we can launch that real quickly here and I'll show you. Now this doesn't have Lumia camera, it has Nokia camera. Lumia camera is the update coming out Q4. So You know, it's a pretty fast camera, but it's not going to be the fastest camera, and presumably the Lumia camera update coming later may speed up things even more. But how is the camera itself? I'm very impressed with it. I've always liked the 720's camera, and that's mostly because of how sharp it is, and that continues with this one. You can see this image here. Now mind you, it is a 6.7 megapixel rear camera, and it has a low f1.9 aperture, which for those of you who don't know, the lower the aperture, the more light it lets into the sensor, so you get good low light performance. And you know, it continues with this device. I absolutely love it. Here's a beautiful leaf outside. And this was actually blowing, so it actually caught it pretty well, although it could probably be sharper, but I like this, right? Look at that, zoom in, there's a creepy spider on there. So pretty good quality for this camera. I'm very impressed, even though it's only 6.7 megapixels, it's very sharp. And there's your selfie picture of me. I smiled a little bit for you guys, because I know I get a lot of complaints about that. So that's with the 5 megapixel front-facing camera. They do call this the selfie phone after all, and it's you can see, I'm not going to zoom in all the way, you can basically see your pores on it. It's kind of disturbing, which is probably why they have that selfie app to smooth out things. But it's a very sharp camera, especially if you're outside in good lighting conditions. Now, that camera is not autofocus, it's fixed focus, so you can't tap to focus on things, but it does have the timer built in and everything. So I'm very impressed with this camera. I think it works well. Some of the light balance is a little weird. My face is actually a little bit redder than I would prefer. I don't think it's really that red in real life. So some of the light color balance stuff might be off a bit, but it is still a relatively new phone, so perhaps some tweaking can be done. Let's go into those, that was kind of odd. We'll go into the settings here, and I'll show you some of the stuff that's on board. So of course, extras and info we've already seen as Lumia Denim. You get the display here. There is no glance, as I mentioned, so you do get your brightness profile and color profile, which is nice. Brightness profile lets you set the default brightness, which is good. And this does have an ambient light sensor, so it will auto adjust, but you can still set it for dimmer if you prefer, and you can kind of scroll through here to see the pictures to see how well that works. And then you can do color profile, so you can make things cool looking. You can make them vivid, so it's going to be warmer with brighter tones. You can also do advanced, which gives you controls yourself, and you can set it to your preference or just standard. So great options there. Call and SMS filter, part of Nokia phones, of course. HTC One does not have that, so that's a cool feature to have. Over here, we got touch. You got some of the stuff on the navigation bar and wake up, double tap to wake up, and your touch sensitivity stuff, super sensitive touch. That means you can wear gloves, of course, while using this in the wintertime. Always a great feature. Part of the more high-end stuff that you don't see on the lower-end Lumia 530s. Motion data, so that's part of the sensor core, where it can control or use the sensors on your device for location and basically footsteps and motion. And you can disable that or enable it. It's disabled by default, and you can also clear the data. But a lot of third-party apps use that and basically count your steps, which is kind of cool. Let's go into audio, always a big question for a lot of people. You do get a graphic equalizer, and it works with the speaker, which is really nice. Doesn't work with Bluetooth, but you get speaker and headphone usage, which is really good. I know a lot of people ask for equalizers, so there you go. Under enhancements, you got to flip to silence the device in case a call is coming in. You can flip it over, and then you also have virtual surround. No Dolby Digital, but you do get the virtual stuff, which is pretty good. Other than that, though, Nokia account, Network Plus, and you get your navigation bar options. As I showed you before, you can set it to always dark, match background, or match accent color. And you can have it hide and disappear, swipe away, and you see it gives you that little screen, which you can dismiss and won't show you again, which is pretty good. The OS, though, like I said, responsive, camera really good. I think this is a great successor to the 720. If you have a 720, you're going to feel right at home with this. It's just the same size, nice feel in the hand, great cameras on it. Of course, you get the better front-facing camera, 1 gig of RAM, so you can run those games on there. It's very light. It's only about 135 grams, and to put that in perspective, let me show you the iPhone 6, which this actually looks very similar in terms of size, and it really is. Both have the same display resolution. This is, by the way, 316 ppi, so it's pretty high. You can see the thickness there. Now, of course, iPhone 6 has got a case on it, as you probably noticed, because it's super fragile. I don't think you really need one for this device, though. But iPhone 6 technically thinner, but this is a pretty thin phone at 8.9 millimeters, and they weigh virtually the same. You can't really tell the difference. And so you know, they're pretty similar devices, of course, except that one's way cheaper than an iPhone. And let's face it, these live tiles are way cooler. But there you go, quick tour of the Nokia Lumia 735. And this will be coming hopefully to the US soon, but you can get it globally from various carriers and regions. Head to Windows Phone Central for more information. Leave us a comment, and if you have a question, ask away. We'll try to answer it. And we'll give you guys more coverage of this device in the coming days. But there you go. Take care, everybody.